Welcome to the Cinefied podcast, where we just sit around and talk movies and just have fun. Today, we're going to talk Mortal Kombat 2. I am actually a pretty big fan of the pretty much every outing of Mortal Kombat put to screen. It's a guilty pleasure for me and a casual video game player. So I feel first off, let's just kind of go down the line. How do we feel about the games itself? John, how do you feel about the games?
Well, growing up in the early 90s, because I was born in the 80s, like Mortal Kombat was like the coolest thing on the block. You know, when it came out, when it hit the street and the arcade and the Sega Genesis, and then Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and then Mortal Kombat 3 came out. So those were staples in my house growing up playing video games. So the natural progression for film adaptations was just ripe for the picking. And so as a fan of the video games, like I'm very excited. I was very excited.
Okay. Yeah, I personally, because I didn't really go into it, I used to, there was a Max and Ermis in town that long went out of business, but they used to have an upstairs arcade. And so, like, while my parents would eat, we would go upstairs to the arcade. And this was back in the very early 2000s. And yeah, Mortal Kombat was there. And I think probably if we were under supervision, we probably wouldn't have been allowed to play it. but yeah, it was fun. And also we had I think it was Nintendo 64. I think it was like Mortal Kombat Armageddon maybe or something of that nature. But yeah, that's pretty much my extent. And then I played here and there. I just suck at it. I'll be honest. So I play here and there, but I don't really go too deep into it. Peter, what about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I'm an 80s baby, so a 90s kid. So I feel like it was just like a staple to have. It was either like, have a Street Fighter or a Mortal Kombat game like there to play. And yeah, I had like the early iterations of it on. We had like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and then Nintendo 64. So yeah, it was just one of those games that was just the easiest thing to play. Like if you ever had like friends over, you could, pretty much that game came out and everyone just kicked the shit out of each other. It was like between that and then like GoldenEye, because that was just the other thing to play. Nice. But it's funny hearing like arcades and that this was a game that like kids shouldn't have played. Like it's very amusing that like parents pretty much just went, have this game, it'll like entertain you, and then you just go, yeah, it's like people ripping spines out of other people. Like it's wild that we would just let loose. But like, hey, we turned out fine. So you know what? Don't helicopter parent, it's fine.
I mean, you have to remember too that the first Mortal Kombat game was like it was like one of the Genesis reasons for having like the rating system.
Yeah.
For video games.
They were like they were hard. Like they got, and then they just got like increasingly worse in terms of like what you would be able to do to each other, which is like awesome. But yeah, I remember then all of a sudden like the, like down here we have like the MA rating, and then it became like R ratings later on, and yeah, but I think you didn't have a good childhood if you weren't playing something you shouldn't have been playing.
Well, I remember getting in trouble for playing the N64 game, whatever that may have been called. But I remember, I was not supposed to play that. That was my brother's game, and I snuck it out for like a sleepover. And it was very frowned upon. I remember getting in pretty big trouble. But what's insane to me is that the game originated back in '92 in arcades, and then came to home entertainment systems. You got the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, the Game Boy, the Game Gear, all at the same time in '93. Then 2 years later, we get our first Mortal Kombat adaptation. It's one of the fastest turnarounds, I feel like. I mean, we have a couple like indie games that kind of turn around like adaptations pretty quick nowadays. But as far as like a mainstream, they really like, this was on fire, and they're like, we're going to capitalize on it. So how do you both feel? I'll start with you, Peter. How do you feel about the one from Paul W.S. Anderson from '95?
So yeah, it's funny like that. I like have very distinct memories of, because I would have been like 10 or 11 when that came out, and that movie was like such an event movie. Like it was pretty much tailor made for like that 11 to 16-year-old range. I haven't seen the original one in a very, very long time, but I remember like loving it as a kid, and then I remember seeing it, over the years, and it wasn't like, it was never like, obviously it's very much a product of its time, but it was never like awful. Obviously a certain sequel sort of decided to be really, really awful. But yeah, the original Mortal Kombat, like I would be very interested to revisit it to see like what it's like. But I just remember that movie was like, we went with a bunch of friends. It was like Saturday afternoon. Cinema was like completely full. And it was just one of those ones where we went, oh, like it actually became a good movie of a video game. Obviously, it would have been, it was quite tame in compared to like what we know that they could do and should do. But yeah, I have really nice memories of Mortal Kombat, so it's maybe I should revisit it in case it's terrible. But I just remember it being like a really, really big event movie, and like kind of living up to the hype as like an 11-year-old would sort of like hold that standard, I guess.
John, how about you? How's your feelings?
So listen, Mortal Kombat 95 was a touchstone in my childhood. The adaptation, like almost slavish adaptation from game to screen, it was like Peter was saying, it was kind of tame because it had a PG-13 rating, which they tried to go for an R, but they wanted to capitalize on the audience, age range, and had to settle for PG-13. That movie, it was ubiquitous. The soundtrack alone was everywhere, and the fight scenes, oh my gosh, some of the best choreography. And at that point I was really obsessed with martial arts movies at that young age, and so this was just ripe for the picking. It felt tailor-made for a 10-year-old boy who played video games and watched kung fu movies. And yeah, like it's definitely dated in many ways. The CG is questionable at best, but also there's a lot of charm still with it. Because I recently rewatched it before I watched this new one, and just on a whim, I'm like, why not? And I had just as much fun with it as I did, 30 something years ago. So it holds up, I feel. It's a little cheesy, a little silly, but that's what I'm there to see. So I love it.
I actually just watched it for the first time maybe back in October. So it's currently May of 2026, so October 2025. And I always like saw bits and pieces. I feel like just clips. I feel like it played on like G4 Network, maybe like when I was growing up. It's a very cheesy, very like insane film to me. It does have really good choreography. I think it's a very fun movie. It's very over the top, as it should be for a game, this type of game. And but I remember being like, man, some of this like CGI is really bad. And then I like immediately followed that by watching Annihilation, and I was like, "Ooh, I forgive you, first movie." so, and what's funny is the Arrow Video is releasing the 4K bundle. You can't buy them individually; you have to get them together. The 4K bundle, like I think June. So that's unfortunate, but I guess I'll just get them and never watch Annihilation ever. But yeah, I think it's fun. It's very interesting that pretty much like for a moment there, it was like Uwe Boll and Paul W.S. Anderson were like the video game adaptation people. So, and obviously like they both make questionable movies. One definitely more towards the line of awful. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the 95 one. And I'm sure we all probably have the same feeling about Annihilation. We don't really need to get into that. No. Yeah,
Let's keep it moving.
Yeah. James Remar being Raiden, that's all you got to know. It's an awful recast. I love James Remar. It's not his fault, but
I will say the casting for Mortal Kombat is like Lyndon Ashby is like an awesome
Johnny Cage.
Robin Shu, I think, is like kind of the epitome of Liu Kang. Like Bridget Wilson was a great Sonya. Fun fact, meant to be Cameron Diaz.
Oh,
Didn't
wow.
get the role.
That is a
but
fun fact.
yeah, I think like they actually did pretty well with their casting for the first one, and then obviously Annihilation kind of, we had a new Sonya, and they, you know, got rid of Johnny Cage, and yeah, that movie is just,
It's rough.
they decided that's what they were going to release into cinemas, and yeah.
Well, it was a long time between the Annihilation film coming out in '97, which ended up with a 40% downgrade from Mortal Kombat 1, which went from 44% to 4% on Rotten Tomatoes. And then we had a series that came out. No one really even acknowledges the series. I don't even know where it aired. But that came out in like the early 2010s. And then we had another big break. And then in 2020, we got an awesome animated film. I don't know if you guys have checked out the animated films, but the Mortal Kombat Legends, the first one, highly recommend. I saw the second one. I thought it was a downgrade, but still really good. I never saw the other following two, but Joel McHale plays Johnny Cage in those animated ones. I think he's perfect. And I'll get into.
Oh my God, he's so Johnny Cage.
Perfect.
I've met Joel McHale, and he's such a Johnny Cage in all the best ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, yeah, he's fantastic, and I do, in some aspects, wish he took on the role here, but it's, you know, we'll get into it. But going into 2021, Mortal Kombat, we have to, before we get into Mortal Kombat 2, which we just saw, how do we feel about the pretty much the prologue, the introduction to the second film? It's basically just a long, like, here we're kind of getting into the second film. That's what the first film feels like. It doesn't feel like there's a lot that goes on. There's some cool action scenes. We get introduced to a brand new character that does not exist in the world of Mortal Kombat, which was very questionable. I didn't mind Cole Young, but I know a lot of people did not care for his presence. And they kind of, I guess, rectify that here in the sequel. But how do you feel about the first one from 2021? And then we'll jump into 2. John, how do you feel about 2021 Mortal Kombat?
You know, I really enjoyed the 2021's Mortal Kombat. Different feel, different aesthetic. Yes, it's not a typical Mortal Kombat story because there's no tournament really to speak of. It is just kind of like a prequel, like they're gearing us up for the inevitable tournament. Yeah, and I get the inclusion of Cole Young because he's like, we're seeing it through his eyes a little bit, because most of us know the characters and the normal main characters like Jax and Sonya, Liu Kang, Kung Lao, all of them. I really enjoyed it. You know, it still suffered the same kind of material or kind of stasis that the first two films had, where it's like, but like the first film from '95, Mortal Kombat knew what kind of film it was. It wasn't trying to be something grand or epic. It was just like, no, it's a bunch of people kicking the shit out of each other, and there's a lot of blood. But like, what more could you want? And Sub-Zero as the villain was spot on, so well executed, so well done. Like, and maybe the best and the worst thing about Mortal Kombat 2021 was it was so forgettable, like in a good way. Like, I saw it, I turned my brain off for the 2 hours, and when it was done, I didn't think about it anymore, but I knew I had a great experience with it. And that's all I could really expect and hope for from a Mortal Kombat film. More on that later.
What about you, Peter? How do you feel about the 2021 Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, like this one was like, it was one of the first movies here that brought talent with it on its press tour. So I always have like a soft spot for it in terms of like, this was the movie that allowed us to like interview people in person again. And it was like, you know, because like obviously it was released during like the thick of COVID. And they like, Simon McCoy has sort of said, like, we envisioned Mortal Kombat as like a trilogy where like the first film is kind of like getting to the tournament, the second film is the tournament, and the third film will kind of be like back on Earth. So I was like, okay, so when you sort of like look at it in that regard, it makes sense that the first film is kind of this introducing of characters and like leading into it. I think like obviously the opening like 10 minutes of Mortal Kombat is like incredible, and it it's like to its own like detriment that like it could never live up to those. Like it kind of was like it started so well that the rest of the movie kind of felt like, oh, you haven't quite matched that spot. I had like a lot of fun with it. It like I feel bad for Louis Tan as Cole because he got so much like heat when I was like, but we need a character, like we need someone to sort of be our eyes and our viewpoint. So it made sense for him to be a part of it. But again, like I thought the casting of Mortal Kombat was really good. Obviously like biased because some of them are Aussies, and I'm like, yay, because we obviously filmed it here. Like Josh Lawson as Kano is awesome, like incredible. Just like him.
Fucking loved him.
Wearing,
I loved him.
I was like, it's so Australian. Like just the way that we like. That's just
very Australian.
Which is hilarious when people are still like, you guys like just drop C-bombs all the time, and we're like, yes, it's like just how we talk, and it's not offensive. So get used to it. But no, I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's like just quickly in terms of this and Mortal Kombat 2, I think Mortal Kombat is the technically better made film compared to Mortal Kombat 2. But I think Mortal Kombat 2 is more fun when looking at them together.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do agree to that. I think, I mean, I have to say I 100% agree with the first 10 minutes of the 2021 Mortal Kombat. Like when I saw that in theaters, because that was similar to what you were saying. Like that was like the first kind of like bringing back kind of like press screenings to like my local like area. And so I went there and I was just like, you know, sucked into the experience. Whereas like the opening bit, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. And I still really, really enjoyed and some parts loved elements of it. But that first 10 minutes is incredible. And then later in the first film, the fight between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, I think was also awesome. Jumping into now Mortal Kombat 2, I think the first film handles Sub-Zero and Scorpion much better in the first film than I think here. I did not care for what they did with Sub-Zero and Scorpion here, but we will.
I think it's because just they made this like the Johnny Cage show essentially, which
crammed too much in.
Which is why I think other characters kind of suffered from that. But at the same time, like Carl Urban was a surprise to be cast as Johnny Cage, but like I personally really loved what he did. He had the right kind of, you know, cocky swagger for it. Carl is very like tuned into what this character is. Obviously he accepts everything quite quickly. But you know, I think they kind of went, we don't need this movie to have a story. We just want that with this movie just literally needs to be people fighting all the time. So it's like, I think, and when I spoke to Simon, he said, he was like, I'm aware that the first film has its criticisms, and he's like, everyone loved the first 10 minutes, and he's like, and I know that everyone had mixed reactions on everything else. So he's like, so basically he's like, I took that first 10 minutes and I just made it into a movie. And I was like, at least you can own up to the fact that you know that your first film people didn't like certain things, which is also why I think with Cole they decide to do what they do with Cole, which is very much like, we know you guys don't like him, so like listen to this. So I appreciate the fact that they sort of knew what people wanted, and it, by all accounts, it kind of seems like more people are responding to this stronger than the first one.
And just actually sticking on you, Peter, let's just go ahead because we're going to very quickly get into spoilers. So just, you kind of went over a bit of your feelings on this film, but if you want to go a little bit deeper without spoilers, and then how would you rate it? So if anyone wants to drop off and go see it in cinemas, what would you give it on the Cinefied scale, with between a full popcorn, maybe popcorn, which is a half, and then a spilled? Which one would you give it?
Like it's like weird to say like full, because that makes it feel like it's like a, you know, 4 or 5 star movie. But then maybe like I think if you're a fan and you've seen the other Mortal Kombat movies, this is arguably like I think what the fans really want. So in that regard, I would say if you're a fan and you want just like fun escapism, action, gore, comedy, like full popcorn. If you have no feelings towards Mortal Kombat, like then I would say like stay away, because this movie is made for fans and it's made for people who like, you could see this without seeing Mortal Kombat. I feel like they did a pretty good job of giving you enough, but like I think this is like kind of full popcorn for like fan service. And then like a maybe for like people that are kind of like on the fence. But if you've seen Mortal Kombat Annihilation and the 2021 version, there's no reason why you should not see this, because arguably it's like the funnest iteration.
All right, John, same thing. What about you? Spoiler-free thoughts, and then how would you rate it on the Cinefied scale?
All right, so my spoiler-free thoughts are, one, I think Mortal Kombat 2 is an upgrade in many ways from the first Mortal Kombat film, and it's also a downgrade in some ways as well. I do like that they kind of get to the point a little quicker, and this is more about the tournament. I did like Carl Urban. I wasn't blown away by Carl Urban here. And now all I can think about is maybe they should have cast Joel McHale. But but no, this is definitely Katana's story, even though Johnny Cage is up front for some of it. But this is definitely her story more than it is his. And yeah, he kind of just accepts the new reality of being put into a tournament very quickly, but also like we got to keep things moving. We have a fight to get to. Like, it's fine. Some of the fights were really good. Some of the fights were kind of hokey and quick. Like I'll say the one with Sonya, the first one that Sonya's in. I'm like, okay, it's fine. But this movie still had a few surprises. Like the whole Scorpion Sub-Zero, like, yeah, I mean, Sub-Zero technically was not in this film. It was Noob Saibot, which was the reincarnated iteration of Sub-Zero that Bihan became. That's just some game lore for all you MK nerds out there. I thought it was Smoke for a second. Then I remember Smoke was one of the robot fighters. Yeah, like, I'll just tie this into my rating before we get into spoilers. This is a maybe for me on the Cinefied scale. What I would say, if like people going into Mortal Kombat 2 are going to be people going in that know what Mortal Kombat is. So, if your expectations are anything less or more than what Mortal Kombat should be delivering, then I don't know what else to tell you. Now, for me, like, there's objectively, as the critic in me, I was like, there are some sloppy, poorly written parts of this film that I was like, this is just god awful. And then there's some really great parts. And so that healthy balance was fine. I didn't need this movie to be Citizen Kane. I just needed to be entertained for 2 hours, and it delivered. So some of the grievances I had, I can't just forgive a movie flat out for that. So it gets a half rating for me, but to, kind of echo Peter's point, like, if you like Mortal Kombat movies, the games, like, this is right up your alley. You're going to have a great time.
I'm going to second your rating. I would give it a maybe. I plan to see it again in theaters. If I don't, I'll definitely, pick it up cheap when it comes to physical media, just because, I had a good enough time with it. I fully agree that some of the writing was, to me, just so, it was like almost like distractingly bad. And I get it's like, there's not like, I have not played really the story modes much of Mortal Kombat, so I don't know how deep it goes, but I'm just like, this can't be like actually the dialogue that is from the games, but maybe it is. I didn't think I'm going to go ahead and say that yes, it is Johnny Cage's movie and it is Katana's movie. That's split between them. I think they have almost equal amount of screen time to me. I did not care for the actress that played Katana. I don't know why. Just something about her delivery just did not work for me. But I can say the same for quite a few of these actors, that the deliveries just did not work for me. I think like far and large, I mean, the two standouts like are, I mean, number one by a country mile is Kano. I mean, he's still just delivering. And then I would say Carl Urban. But I also feel like as Johnny Cage, like I've already stated this, Joel McHale should have been this role. I don't know how old Joel McHale is versus Carl Urban, because I get they're supposed to be doing like he's a washed up actor, but I feel like they're similar age. Like, to be honest, like maybe Carl's a little bit older.
It was
Peter, were you gonna say something?
It was funny that because like when they have Johnny watching his like the karate video, and it said like a 16-year-old Johnny Cage in the thing, and then it shows the year, and like we were like, holy shit. And then we worked out, so Johnny Cage, I was like, I don't know if they like intended this or not. We worked out Johnny Cage is meant to be like 57 in this movie, going off of how old he was in the 80s when they show that thing. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. He was born in 1969, canonically.
And I was like, I don't think Carl Urban is quite that age.
He's not.
But it works. But it works that he's, you know, like, but then they lean into the whole thing of like, as an actor, he would have, you know, he would have kind of taken care of himself in terms of how he looks and all that sort of stuff. Looking at casting, I was like, if they ever went like a younger version, I'm like, Glenn Powell would eat Johnny Cage up, I reckon, if they went for like a, you know,
I mean, I think that was the rumor for a while. Like that was like when Glenn Powell was like just like I guess that was like coming off of Top Gun Maverick, and was like basically this movie was still in limbo. It's like, who's going to be Johnny Cage? And they're like, well, Glenn Powell. And then when Carl Urban was cast, they're like, he's so much older than I expected, you know, Johnny Cage to be. I think it works for the movie here, but I just feel like it could have went either way.
But yeah, I agree that it's like, I think their intention was kind of to balance, you know, Katana and Johnny Cage, and sort of have Johnny Cage as like the comedic, you know, the comedic element, and then have Katana as like the emotional element. And then when you were talking about like the, you know, the car, like obviously, yeah, like Josh Lawson as Kano is amazing, but I'm also going to give like a character that I was sort of completely unprepared for in terms of what they ended up bringing to the movie and how funny they were. CJ Bloomfield, who plays Baraka, is like he's so good in this. Like he is. I spoke to him before the movie. He is a giant. Nice. He's a very, very tall man. He's very, very sweet, very, very humble. Like this, you know, like sort of Islander guy. And like then seeing him in this, like all like the mouth stuff was like 90% practical, which is awesome. And the fact that he then sort of became like this, like kind of like this fanboy of it all. He was a lot of fun. So I can kind of see him kind of becoming like the you know, secret source of the movie for a lot of people. But yeah, I like these movies are always going to have, you know, people like casting that either hits or doesn't. I really liked Tati Gabrielle as Jade, but obviously she didn't get as much to do either. Like that's the problem when they bring in so many people. Like some characters are gonna fall by the wayside. Like the same thing, you know, like that first fight with Sonya and Sindel, and you're like, Sindel doesn't really get to do much here either.
And we'll just kind of like go down, because I have the fights here. I just kind of want to get kind of like our feelings about the fights, and then because I feel like that would get ultimately our thoughts. So from here on, and even before, we pretty much established we're in spoilers now. So continue your thought, Peter, and then we'll cover it about the fight with what was it, Queen Sindel.
Oh, like that was it was. I was just sort of throwing it in that characters are always going to get, some characters are going to get, you know, shafted in this, and I was kind of surprised when, you know, Sindel was. I was like, oh, that's it for Sindel, and you know, obviously if we're going into spoilers, and we'll talk about another fight that was awesome but ended shockingly with a certain character. I'll wait till we actually get to that fight, but it was obviously they're just gonna have to give, you know, prominence to some people and not to others. But at least at the same time, they're kind of like giving you little tastes of each character. And I really did appreciate like when the kind of like the players live sort of showed up at the top with like the blue and red fire. I was like, that was cool to sort of bring that in. And I don't know if either, like, did you both see this in IMAX at all? Like,
no, just standard.
I will say there's like 2 fight sequences where like they kind of like zoom out and the screen literally like rose up, and I was like, okay,
oh, nice.
It's actually like if you can see it in IMAX, people that are listening, like it's definitely worth it. But yeah, because they did film it for IMAX and certain things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
there were moments that our writer who couldn't be here, Kyle, he saw it with me in theaters, and he was saying that a negative that he had was there's a lot in here that feels like it was almost shot in 3D, because there was a lot of stuff that was like at the screen. So I don't know if it would actually benefit from a 3D showing or not, but I didn't see it in 3D, so I don't know. If you're listening, let us know if you saw it in 3D, if it even is in 3D. I don't know. But all right. So there's actually not too many fights in this movie. It seems like a lot more, but it's because they cram everything into like basically. Whoop! I touched the mic. Sorry about that. They kind of like fight over and over, and so it just basically starts with the King versus Shao Kahn, which we get probably one of the most brutal fatalities to me, and that's where we get kind of the introduction of Katana. So I just kind of want, as we go down, just like, do we think that this was worth like seeing, or do you think that it should have got a better cut, basically? So the King Jared versus Shao Kahn, do you think that should have remained the way it is, or it should have it should have been kind of different way? How do we feel about this fight?
I enjoy that fight. It set up Shao Kahn pretty well and his capabilities as a fighter, as well as the King. And like it was kind of like, it reminded me of the fight in Game of Thrones. I'm gonna go back in time a little bit with the mountain fighting Pedro Pascal, where you thought Pedro Pascal had it, like he had it in the bag and then turned around last minute and got his head smashed in, or in this case, he got cut pretty badly. He got dismembered pretty badly. I thought it was good. It was a good warm up for the rest of the film.
Yeah. I think that this is a good lead into the film. Obviously, not to the great lead in that we got in the first film, but I would leave it how it is. Do you feel the same, Peter?
Yeah, like if you're going to compare it to the first one, it's kind of like at a disadvantage. But like I think it was kind of a good way to sort of set up the I think it was a good way to set up like Katana's emotional investment in the film as well, and sort of giving you the sort of showing like, hey, we are gonna kill people quite unexpectedly, almost. Like you sort of think, oh, those characters will be in this longer, and then they're not. So yeah, I would kind of leave it as it is.
And then the next two, we don't really need to judge. They're just kind of like there, but cool action sequences to me. One, we get kind of play into how it's going to play out later. Katana versus Jade, just kind of seeing them fight. You know, it's a play fight. It's not real, so it doesn't really. But it shows that she can use her ribbon for fighting, which we see play out at the end. And then the Johnny Cage movie scene, I mean, very cheesy, very over the top, but very, Jean-Claude Van Damme. So, I mean, I love the rocket, like just basically going out and just somehow getting up and hitting the helicopter. I mean, that was just, pure awesome.
That's just how physics works, Connor.
Yeah.
That's just
I'm sorry. I'm not a scientist.
I would actually love like a whole movie. I would want that movie made. Like I was Citizen Cage, like make that movie.
Release the Cage cut right now, immediately.
And then after that, we actually go into the one that Peter Yuri brought up, Sonya Blade versus Queen Sindel. I would personally cut this a different way. I think that I get that that's her move, the scream, but I feel like there needed to be more there. It was also a very enclosed space. It just didn't feel like a lot going on. I did think the kill was ultimately brutal, but bringing her back almost immediately, I was just like, eh. So how do you both feel about that one? Yes, no? How do you feel?
It was fine. Like it was, again, they had to kind of get through a lot of fights kind of quickly, so I get why it was chopped down. but it felt very claustrophobic, very tight. I like the spikes. I like the elements of the fight, but I wish there was a little bit more meat to the fight.
Do we know if that's actually based on
it
on a level in the game? As you two have played the games?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me. And then the next couple fights we're going to talk about, definitely they are. But I think this one is part of the pit, one of the pit levels.
Okay.
So
okay,
that's my
Peter.
take.
Yeah, like it's a because I was like I really like Jess McNamee as Sonya, and like Queen Sindel. I thought it was like such an awesome character. It's like it's a shame that like even if you need to have Queen Sindel in one scene only, like I just think I think the claustrophobia of it all, like just this one needed to be a little bit they could have stretched this one out, given a bit more to it, had Sindel maybe do more than just scream. Like I get although, and then a small part of me was like, it's kind of like that thing where when you're playing the game and like you manage to corner someone and then you just do one move over and over again to kill them. So it was kind of like, is that what they were kind of subtly going for?
Maybe.
But yeah, it needed more, considering like, yes, there's an upped, female presence to this film, but like Sonya then still doesn't feel like as utilized as she should. And if this is kind of like her big moment, this fight should have been like a bit more epic, and had, even if it like they started somewhere and like landed in the pit or something like that. But I think we kind of all agree that there could have been more.
There's a better cut out there.
but great fatality at the end of it. So yeah.
Agreed. All right, and then we get our first actually big fight of the movie, which is Johnny Cage versus Katana. I thought that this was a fun scene. I thought the editing was kind of very choppy though. In this, to me, it just felt, I don't know. Something reminded me of like Taken 3, how choppy some of the editing was. But I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with the Johnny Cage kind of coming to realization, oh shit, I could die. So I would keep it the same, honestly, even though the editing is a little wonky for me. John, let's just go down the line.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun introduction for Johnny Cage to realize the stakes of Mortal Kombat, and in a charming way, in a mechanical way, it kind of had like this Jackie Chan fight feel to it, where like they're using the landscape to kind of incorporate the fight scene. But you can kind of tell that Katana was pulling her punches a little bit, and they do explain it later, so it didn't feel cheated. So I thought it served its purpose as far as seeing Johnny Cage get humbled, and then get a reality check, and then just had to pop onto the next fight. So I wouldn't change a thing. I thought it was fine.
And Peter,
yeah, same sentiment. It was like, it was needed just to sort of give Johnny sort of like the realization of like, you could get completely fucked up in this if we wanted you to.
Nope. Yeah, I think that there's going to be a common theme with the last couple fights, because I think there's a lot of keep it the same, edit it differently. The next one I would edit differently. I didn't enjoy the Jax versus Jade fight. I just thought it was very underwhelming. I mean, I just didn't get a lot out of it, to be honest. So I would change it like entirely. To me, I feel like Jade just didn't get enough screen time for me to really care. But I'm also not an avid player of the game. John, how about you?
I mean, the fight served its purpose of showing Jax fight somebody and then Jade fight somebody. They just happened to fight each other, and they had a little bit of chemistry. They're kind of checking each other out. Like, it was kind of cool in that regard. And it kind of stinks because, spoiler alert, Jax bites it later on in the film, and so we don't see any kind of resolution to that kind of push and pull of the Jax and Jade fight. And again, it was just a placeholder till they got to the more main characters and the plot progression. But it's not a Mortal Kombat film without some Mortal Kombat in it. So I got it.
And Peter.
Pretty much. It was like, it was kind of just like, we need to give these characters something to do before we, so it makes Jade feel, because obviously then she sort of weaves her way into the story with Katana and Jax.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I feel like
bites the dust.
it was kind of just okay. We can okay. So yeah, but also the fact that like I don't know the fact that the way that he died, and we know that obviously people can be brought back. I feel like there's a possibility for the third one that he could sort of get,
Yeah, absolutely, John. It's like Supernatural. Anyone can come back at any time. It's like Sam, Dean, Bobby, everybody's back.
Yeah. I was like, obviously, there's one particular character that I don't think is coming back, which is probably the next.
Who could that be, Peter?
Fight. It's the next fight.
Who do you mean? Oh man, say it ain't so. Oh man,
go ahead, Peter. Who do you think? Go ahead. I bet it's the next fight.
Well, I was like, if you guys really hate Cole Young, congratulations, because he fucking dies, and that scene kind of took everybody by surprise in the cinema, because you're just like, wow, like you fully maimed someone that we were kind of expecting to be like a co-lead, or at least like kind of a bit more front and center. It's kind of wild. Like I kind of love that they were like, all bets are off. And the fact that it was so final. It's just like the head is one thing, and then just like the getting the body dragged, we were like, okay, like it's shocking that you killed him, but also it's a pretty fucking great like way to just completely like go, we know that you don't like this character, so let's smash his head in and then burn his body alive. I was like, yeah, okay. But I also feel like bad for Lewis Tan, because I'm like, he didn't do anything wrong. He was just stuck with a character that more people decided they didn't like. And then he's brought back for a sequel where you've literally got like 3 minutes of screen time. Like it's not.
Yeah, his screen time was basically just saying, yeah, Johnny Cage, you can go back home, and then it's like, and then just dying. So that's pretty much his screen time. John, how do you feel about that fight? Do you think Cole deserved to die?
So I'm mixed on this fight, and I'll tell you why. First of all, what I loved about it was I love that they incorporated that acid bath pit stage. That's a direct lift from the game Mortal Kombat 2. Like the hooks hanging down, the acid bath around the plank, around the walkway. Like I was like, I recognized immediately what they were doing, and in a later fight they did the same thing. And yeah, so at this point, Shao Kahn has got his little cheating immortality gem imbued in him, so he's not going to die. And so you're like, how are they gonna handle this? Because Lewis Tan's or Cole Young, he was like the star of the film last time, and we got invested with his family, and love him or hate him, but like there's a lot we were handed with this character, and then you smash his head, and then you drag him into the acid. Like there is no coming back from that. Like he is atoms, and that is it. Like we're all atoms now, but you know what I mean? Like he's dissolved down to the atomic level. And so I was like, yes, that was cool. Yes, it was shocking. Yes, oh my god. And yes, it was fan service for the Cole haters out there, sure. But also I felt a little cheated by that, because you set me up to really give a shit about somebody. Ironically, it was the one character who was not a legacy character from the games. And then you just say, you know what? We're just going to wipe him off the map, and we're going to keep it moving. And Shao Kahn's a badass, and da-da-da-da. I was like, fine. I'll give him credit. They had the balls to go there. And that was cool. They didn't play it safe. I'll give him that. But I did feel a little bit cheated with that fight, or the outcome of that fight, I should say.
And John, you brought up that we got all this thing from the first film, so with Cole Young, and one of the things we got, and then we'll continue on, is we got the tattoo formation. When you kill like a fighter, or whatever the terminology is, you get the tattoo to become one. Carl Urban's Johnny Cage does not get that. They just dropped that. Do you think that was a necessary drop, or did they just forget about it?
And that's one of the things we just have to accept with these Mortal Kombat films, is like the writing is not going to be super sharp. They're going to miss things. They're going to drop things out of convenience or whatever. And like, I can see the writer's room now. Like if they're thinking this deep into it, we didn't do our job in delivering a better action movie. So, that's how I assume they kind of looked at those incongruencies between the films, and I throw my hands up and say whatever. So
nope, you're probably right. Peter, do you feel the same?
Yeah, like I think it's like maybe they kind of went, oh, if we bring in the idea of the five or six of the fighters like lives, put them in the air, like maybe that'll be a good way of kind of like sort of us going, hey, we know what we're doing with the games, and unless maybe there's a lot of this film cut out that there's more story, we sort of don't know. Like I know that there was a lot of stuff filmed at the convention at the beginning with Carl Urban. And this film already runs pretty long for kind of movie it is, so they don't need any more. But and like who knows, maybe there's Cole Young stuff that like didn't make it, sort of giving him a little bit more. But yeah, like I understand, like it is kind of unfair that this character who we spent like an entire film behind is then given like one scene. And as great as it is that they sort of went there, it's like you kind of like you've almost made the first film like, I suppose if you watch them as 1 and 2 together, it sort of feels a bit more like, oh, he dies like halfway through the film sort of thing. But but then my idea is like maybe for the third, maybe like the daughter will avenge him or something.
Yeah, they definitely didn't leave out that he has the wife and kid. He comments about it. But moving on to the next fight, to me, they bring in a plot point where they brought back Kano and Kung Lao from the dead, and now Kung Lao is a bad guy, and now Liu Kang is versus Kung Lao. I think this fight is really cool. I think it's the most effective fight in the film. I thought it was brutal. I did think maybe the final kill was a little underwhelming because of I just thought it was a little too CGI. But how do you both feel about this? Would you say this is your favorite of the fights in it? It's my second. It's my first right now, but it's very close to the next fight. And then pretty much the rest to me are meh. All right, John, go ahead.
I did like this fight as well. It reminded me, it was also a direct lift from Mortal Kombat 2, a different stage that they fight on, with the background and everything. And you can kind of see how they mapped it out with like the 2D kind of space of the characters facing each other, fighting like you would see in the game. And I did enjoy that. And I always liked the characters of Liu Kang and Kung Lao, so it was good seeing them pair up and have to duke it out. And I like some of the attributes that the Kung Lao's helmet gave him to kind of teleport and transport in to deliver punches and kicks. Was kind of neat. And yeah, I enjoyed this fight. It wasn't my favorite, but like I thought it was
Have we already
cool.
covered your favorite, or is it coming up?
It's coming up.
Okay, cool. Peter, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think this was probably the first fight this was the first fight in IMAX where the screen really was like, okay, like this is why this fight looks as great as it does. I really loved like the coloring of this, how it was like the shades of blue and the shades of red, and him just teleporting all the time. And I was like, oh, that hat's gonna come into this somehow. It's probably one of like the highlights. It's probably one of the highlights. But it'd be interesting to see if our favorite fight is the same one.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be my second favorite is probably your guys' favorite, but who knows? I thought, like I said, good fight. Moving on to the next one is Johnny Cage versus Baraka, which I thought was a lot of fun. This one to me is the best choreographed one, just because it's there, like just like running around with like it's like a chicken with its head cut off kind of thing, like avoiding the fight and to the kids and everything. I thought it was a lot of fun. I like this energy. This energy I felt was very much like the energy I wanted from the rest of the film, I guess. So, like some of it kind of like was all over the place in tone, but I liked it overall. I would not cut either of these last two fights. John, how do you feel?
Oh yeah, the Baraka Johnny Cage fight was my favorite of the film. It wasn't in the tournament. It wasn't a tournament fight, but it still felt like a tournament fight. And like kind of like you alluded to earlier, Connor, like this had a great tone to it. It felt tonally like the most fun and most loose everyone was having, with using the sets, using the different CGI, using the choreography. The bit where Johnny Cage is like doing this wind back wind thing, like which is really just doing nothing at all, is all like showmanship. Was really silly, but like it was intended to be silly. And the fact that Baraka walked away from that, like, oh my gosh, this guy is the best warrior ever. How does he do it? Please teach me. I thought that was just really charming and fun. And it was a good cooler between the heavier fights. So it was a good kind of resting pause. You still get entertained and you still get some action, but you didn't feel like you had to like hold your breath, like, oh no, they're gonna do Cole again and drop somebody out of nowhere. So it was the most enjoyable in that regard for me.
I when he did like the wind thing, like I remember turning to Kyle and I was just laughing, and he went, "What the fuck is this?" So
exactly,
Peter,
what the fuck is that? It's stupid, but you love
it. Great, yeah. Peter, any thoughts?
Like, yeah, this is my favorite fight of the movie, just because it's like it kind of is that sweet spot of like taking the game seriously with all of its like insanity, and then like, but yeah, adding a good layer of like self-awareness, and Johnny kind of starting to sort of realize how he can navigate his way through this. And again, like, because Baraka was just such a surprise iteration, like I love the way that they characterized him in this. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I was like, but when I was watching it, I was thinking like, shit, like I know that they're not going to kill Johnny, and I was like, this is a huge thing to kill Baraka, but obviously it goes in a different direction. And then I love that they then like continued on Baraka's kind of like fanboy mentality for Johnny Cage for the rest of the movie. Like that kind of reveal towards the end of him like just sitting there wide-eyed, like, teach me your ways and everything. Like I thought it was a lot of fun. So yeah, this was like kind of the highlight, because it just sort of had all of the elements of like kind of what we expect from a Mortal Kombat, even though it's not like a particularly violent fight, so to speak. But it's
more slapstick.
Yeah, but it's like it just has the right tone of like, and then it's also like everybody going, you guys are watching like a Mortal Kombat movie. Like, just remember that this is not serious cinema. Like this is literally like the cinematic version of like the Wind move, basically.
After you mentioned Connor watching this fight, I to be a fly on the wall in the theater watching Kyle watch this fight is like, I need to see that footage so badly right now. I can see Kyle like, what the fuck is this? And it would just be perfect because of who Kyle is as a person. Anyway, I gotta see it.
Well, we don't have that footage, but it would be he's more of a fan of the games than I am. So, but yeah, even so, he was like, "What the fuck?" All right, then we got 3 more fights, but really, there's the next one, and then the other 2 are really lumped in together because it's very like choppily edited to me. But the next one, we have Jax's murder, but he's brutally killed, and I think that this is where, unlike Cole Young, he still has a face. So I do think they're gonna bring him back. They're gonna, there's like a 0% chance he's not coming back if they make another one. And this film is doing well at the box office so far, so there's a chance. How do we feel about this fight? As I kind of already said, I think that this fight and the next 2 fights to me are kind of meh. I didn't really like how they closed out because the previous 2 fights we talked about were awesome. So how do we feel about this Jax versus Shao Kahn accompanied by Liu Kang?
The best part of this whole sequence to me, honestly, was when Kano was like lining up the 3 guys. Just come on, look to the right, look to the left, and he just zaps them all. And then the rest of it, what comes right after that is all a bunch of bullshit. And I don't know, like the coolest fight, or one of the coolest fights, I think, was what happens with Kano and Johnny Cage and Noob Saibot down the road. This fight, like, yeah, Jax dies, and you could kind of see it coming, but then like with Kano being brought back and Kung Lao being brought back, it's like, so if they die, who gives a shit? They have a necromancer and fucking whatever. Like they try to sell this as like this big, oh no, not Jax, but like who gives a shit? He'll be back. It's fine.
Yeah, they definitely allude to him being back, or like we're gonna go get our people back, basically at the end. So it's just like, except Cole. So, all right, Peter, how do you feel about this? And then we're just gonna go into the one John already kind of referenced.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where like it loses a little bit of the stakes because you sort of think, well, you'll probably like, yeah, you kept his face, and that's the kind of thing you'd be like, if you keep your face and your head is attached to your body, it's very possible that you're coming back. But just briefly mentioning like the necromancer thing, like Kano just wailing on him the entire movie, like how he's like, "Oi, Pennywise," and just like it was he's so good, and that's just Josh. Also, like I went to school with Josh, so that was like he was just like, well, at school it was kind of like, you are going to be like, you're going to be an actor, like in some regard. So it's like, it's awesome just to see him like, yeah, get his moment here. And he was basically like, we filmed one version with the script, and he's like, and then I filmed another version where I was allowed to just say whatever the fuck I wanted. And I'm like, I don't know what's what in this, because it all feels very, very off the cuff. So yeah, I know that had really nothing to do with the fight, but that was the more entertaining thing of the thing
cool.
with Jax.
All right, so now we're getting into Scorpion versus is it Bihan? Is that Sub-Zero's actual name? Bihan and Noob Sabat. Sabat. I fucking suck. All right. So I did think that they were
quick lore drop. Yeah. That's Ed Boon and John Tobias. That's her last name spelled backwards. Oh. That's where that character's name comes from.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Huh. The more you know, Connor. The more you know. Us old heads, Peter and I, we know what's going on.
Peter, did you know that?
Yeah. It's I'm not like no. I was trying to be like, oh, it's okay, but I was like, it's not like like a really like, it's not like everybody.
It's not critical.
Yeah, but it's just kind of like, yeah, if you know little, and then it's kind of like when you're looking things up, you're like, oh, that's cool that's what that is, but it's not like you don't if you're not like you don't have to worry that you didn't know Connor. It's not like everyone's there going like, oh, this fucking guy doesn't know.
I'm giving you the crap that Kyle's not here to give you himself.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
Right. You're right. All right. So I don't really have. I thought this was just all over the place. I thought they put way too much, because they had this fight. They had the Liu Kang and Sonya Blade versus Shao Kahn fight happening simultaneous. And I just thought it was way too much going on at the same time. I just lost interest to me. I don't know. I just was not fully on board with the way this was edited. I just felt like there was some cool action, but I just felt like overall, I could care less about this Sub-Zero versus Scorpion fight. I will say visually, I really loved when they first got down there and he's like eating the peach and he's like, you should eat the peach, and then everything started wilting and dying around. I thought that was a really cool sequence, especially just from a visual standpoint, because there are some not great CGI throughout, but I thought that looked beautiful. John or Peter, whoever wants to start, how do you feel about this editing, these two fights? How do you feel about it overall as we get into the end of the film? Because we got one last fatality to talk about after this.
Yeah, it was messy. It was a little all over the place. But I think they kept focus enough to where you could kind of realize where you were, who you were with. Like you were with Kano and Johnny Cage down in hell or whatever that realm, or you were in back in the Outworld, and like it was fine, but you could tell they had to like get into high gear because we're reaching the climax of the film, and so it's I felt like my head was spinning a little bit, but like
not even your head, the camera was spinning too. Boy,
yeah,
like, what's happening?
Yeah. So it took me out of it a little bit, but like Like, it was fine. It was just candy for the eyes, and I kind of just rolled with it, honestly.
Peter, what about you?
Yeah, so this was kind of the point where it felt kind of like everything kind of was like bleeding into each other. It was just kind of like you just didn't really have a time to stop and I guess like really think about what you were watching and where you are, because it sort of feels like every fight up until that point, at least, even if it wasn't like the best fight, they still sort of had like a personality and like a setting to them. And I think that because this one was kind of just like everything, and then also like like because we know how good fights between Sub-Zero and Scorpion could be from like the previous films, so it's also like, did it sort of suffer because it didn't live up to that as well? But it at this point it's kind of just like, let's just have people fight and let's do some cool things every now and then. If we throw sort of the camera around, as like people might not notice that this fight isn't as like great as it actually is. And yeah, like I think because it was getting to that point of the film where it's like we've been here for so long now. I think it was just their way of like, let's just shove everything in. It was still like entertaining, but it's honestly like none of that part of the movie really like retained for me.
It really was like the kitchen sink approach, because you still had like a simultaneous with all that, concurrent with that was still like the Raiden Shang Tsung thing happening. I'm like, good Lord. Just, because they just kind of like it, they put you here for a fight, and then everything everywhere all at once. It was a mess. It was fun, but it was a mess.
Yeah, I felt the Raiden thing was there. Just hacked in there. It's just like, you go kill Raiden. It's your perfect time. Yeah, it's just like, okay, you could have just left that out, but whatever. So yeah, overall, I feel like we're all very kind of mixed on those last two fights, and then we have the amulet that is giving Shao Kahn eternal life is broken. Now he is mortal once again. There's a cool fight where between Katana and Shao Kahn, where at first he has his immortality, and she basically is, she's basically dead in the water. Like, there's no way to beat this guy. But then once the amulet's beaten, there's a cool slow motion where his throat slit, and you see the blood leaking down underneath his vest. I thought that was a cool shot, and I thought this whole kind of sequence here was cool. And while the I would say this is one of the lesser CGI moments, I did think it was cool, the fatality that occurs, which. But maybe that's just my visual. Like, after seeing all the crazy CGI that occurred in the Never Realm, maybe maybe that made me kind of go, oh, that didn't look great when the head kind of became multiple pieces. But Peter, go ahead and go first. How do you feel about this final fight and the ending fatality?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool, sort of, I guess, giving like, because the whole film kind of was leading up to, Katana sort of doing something grand and being like, the sort of savior of it all. So I appreciate that she got her moment. And yeah, like I loved the fatality when it kind of was all, but at the same time, yeah, the CGI was overt. But it was a cool way to sort of cap everything off and be like, well, he's not coming back. We know that for sure. Your head is not in there.
They could sew it back together. It's not dunked in acid. They could sew it back together. All right, John, go ahead. What are your final thoughts on this fatality to end the film?
Yeah, this final fight, it was fine. It was Katana, like I said earlier, this being mostly, in my opinion, Katana's story. This felt like the great, resolution for her, getting vengeance from for her father. And the ribbon callback was there from earlier. So it was, it was screenwriting 101 in many regards, which is fine. Good arc for her. And Shao Kahn as a fighter the fight was kind of lousy as far as like what we've seen before, because Shao Kahn's just he moves kind of clunky, kind of clumsily. He does do like that shadow kick thing, kind of almost similar to what Johnny Cage does, the shadow kick, which was cool to see. That's also a move from the video game.
Okay.
And so that callback was also neat just to see on screen. but the fatality was like, very satisfactory as far as like if you're on the journey with Katana and you want to ice this dude finally, like what better way to do it than your killer fan blades that cut through everything. That's another thing I wish we could have talked more about. But was just some of the weapons that were used in this film were pretty cool too, up into including Katana's fans. So I enjoyed the resolution, even though the fight was kind of eh.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I didn't really notice a lot of the weapons throughout as much as just the fights. I mean, it seemed like definitely I already forget his name, but is it Sung Lao? No, that doesn't sing.
Kung Lao with the
Kung
hat,
Lao.
the saw
Yeah, with the hat. I thought the best weapon in the whole film, and then I thought the blades were really cool. I thought that was a cool, like, it'd be one of those cool things to have like a prop of. But yeah, I thought overall it was a lot of the same from the last film to me coming here. Like, obviously we got scorpions, chains and hooks, like being able, or not hooks, but like whatever, arrow going through. And then you got the iconic, get over here. You can't have a Mortal Kombat film without saying that. But is there anything else that you guys would like to say about this film before we close out? Yes? No?
Yeah, if you love Mortal Kombat, just in general, the whole IP, this is a movie you're going to enjoy. You're going to, for me, it's a one and done in the theater. And if you're not really heavy into Mortal Kombat all that much, or, you're kind of wishy-washy on these types of films in general, fighting films, martial arts films, video game films, and maybe sit down and wait for this movie to come out in streaming.
It'll probably be on HBO Max at some point in the near future.
Probably in the fall time, for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Peter? Anything to close it out?
Yeah, I think if you're a fan, then there's no reason why you shouldn't enjoy it for all of its all of its flaws and all the things it gets right, kind of in equal measure. But yeah, I still think that the first film is like it's weird to say, like, and it makes me think of like the stupid Harry Styles thing, like it's a movie because it feels like a movie. But I still think the first one feels and looks more cinematic than this one. This is definitely the more fun experience when you're looking at them. So it's kind of weird to be like, this one is better in some regards, but then the first one has a lot of things that I think the first one is like underappreciated in my mind, because I think a lot of people were expecting it to be this, which is fine. So if what you wanted from the first one, you'll probably get with this one, but I think technically the first film just looks better overall. But yeah, if you're a fan, then there's no reason why you shouldn't completely devour what Mortal Kombat 2 is serving up. And from all the reports, it seems like everyone's kind of very much on board. Obviously, like, critics have been kinder to this one. Audiences seem to really love this one. The money is talking. I'm sure Mortal Kombat 3 is hopefully not like, hopefully it's not another 5-year wait.
I would hope not, because we can't have Carl Urban being in his late 50s, early 60s when the next one comes out.
I mean, this one, Mortal Kombat 2, was also meant to release much earlier than this. Like, it sort of got pushed back a bit. But yeah, I think fans will enjoy this, and hopefully it's only like a 2 years or something until Mortal Kombat 3, because I'd be shocked if we're not getting a Mortal Kombat 3 at this point.
No. But that does it here. We all, to an extent, say check out the film at some point. So it's not a pass. And I would say if you see it on a cheap day, go see it in theaters. I mean, Peter said that there's some cool shots in the IMAX format. So if you have a chance and it's not too much, go ahead and see it in IMAX if you're a Mortal Kombat fan. But overall, I would say see it in standard definition on a cheap day. And I think if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, or even a casual fan like myself, you're just going to have a fun time. It's not great, but it's a good time. And that ends it. I'll see you guys on the next Cinefied podcast. Make sure to grab a drink, grab some popcorn, and stay Cinefied. See ya.